All right, everyone. Hi. This is wonderful. I've never used this platform earlier, Acclivents. So this is really exciting. Great. Okay. Kurt, thank you for that very brief introduction to the system and everything. I appreciated that. And welcome, everyone. Welcome to this session. And thank you to my collaborators with the EPA Region 9 Tribal EPA Region 9 conference. I'm really delighted to be here. This is I think my third or fourth year that I've been here. Hi, Andrea. Yeah, and I just wanted to me uh, it's like a brief bio. It's that I'm partial to insects, and I think they're fascinating and the coolest. And it's not really because I'm an entomologist, okay? But those of you who have listened to me talk before, you'll know that I'm partial to insects. But I deal with all kinds of pests in community environments. That's my job. And this presentation, it's going to be about utilizing pest behavior for pest managing them in pest management. And this might be somewhat of a refresher for some of you that have a good deal of experience managing pests in different community environments, but it will be useful for new hands in the field. And for everyone that's listening, I just hope the session is helpful to appreciate how remarkably adapted some of these pests are, and realize all insects are bad, and gain a few tips about managing them. Okay. um, I hope you can see my screen, and not sure if anyone noticed the behavior that the ant in the picture is displaying, right? It's grooming itself. Let me see. Can you, there, you see that? That's behavior, insect behavior, pest behavior right there. Okay. So moving on, I often start a talk on pest management with this question: what is a pest? And different people have different ideas, right? Take this beautiful butterfly, and some of you might recognize it. It's the Arizona state butterfly, and that's where I'm located. And the two-tailed swallowtail, that's what it's called, and it's gorgeous, isn't it? Would we call it a pest? Of course not. But what about its caterpillar here? Well, I wouldn't call it a pest either. It's beautiful in its own way. But as far as the plant is concerned, the plant on which it's sitting on right now, probably it might be a pest because it might feed on the plant. So the concept of a pest varies widely, and that is often what drives our actions with respect to pest management, right? Something to think about. And what about these? Can anyone guess what these are? You want to, you can put your answers in the chat. Yes. Already got an answer. They are cockroaches. Aren't they beautiful? Absolutely beautiful, right? And in fact, cockroaches in the wild are not pests at all. They're beneficial because they're decomposers and scavengers, and they take care of all of that organic matter in the wild. So they're beneficial. But when it comes to your home, and when they breed inside your home, oh, Andrea, these are cockroaches too. I mean, if you want to go back to the previous slide, yeah, these are all cockroaches actually. And yeah, they're really beautiful. But like I was saying, when they are inside your home and they start breeding inside your home, well, that's a different story. Right? That's when we need to intervene. And unfortunately, a lot of people think of an insect when they hear the term pest. But there are so many other creatures out there that can be pests, right? There's rodents, there's and other mammals, um, other arthropods too, not just insects. And there's weeds. How many people thought of weeds as pests? They're pests. And pathogens, right? That cause diseases on plants, and pathogens cause diseases in people and animals. Even people can be pests, right? So there's so many different kinds of pests. And why are there pests? It's like one of the most basic questions we can ask. Why do we see them? Well, they are biological entities, right? And like all living organisms, they need food, water, and shelter, depending on the kind of organism. Not a, maybe they don't need shelter like us, like we do, but those are the three basic needs of life, and that's what they're seeking. And that's when we encounter them, right? And in the process of acquiring their basic needs, like food, water, and shelter, they interfere with our lives and cause all of these different kinds of damages. See, they can cause structural damage or damage to crops. They can bite or sting and just be a nuisance. They can damage food by consuming it or entering it and contaminating it with their with microorganisms or with their feces and urine. And some people get hypersensitive reactions to allergens that pests produce. Some pest can vector diseases. We know all of that. The ways that pests make our lives miserable. And many times, the damage is caused by a pest, but you don't necessarily have to see it, right? So they leave different signs, like the because of their activities, they leave signs like poop or frass, shed skins. You see the bed bugs shed skins there, nesting materials, mouse nest in I think that's a bird box or bird nester, and lots of other signs. On plants they leave different kinds of signs. So all of these are clues, and they're all the result of different aspects of their behavior, right? And the most basic behaviors exhibited by all living things: eating, right? Feeding. So since we're going to talk a lot about insect pests, I thought it might be good to mention the different ways in which insects feed. And they don't all feed the same way, like it's depicted here, like drinking out of a straw. They don't do that. Their mouth parts are remarkably adapted to help them to feed on their particular kind of food, right? So let's look at a few examples here. Here are the two most common adaptations of insect mouth parts: the chewing and biting type on your left, and these are found in roaches, beetles, grasshoppers, many other pests. And on the on the right, you can see the piercing and sucking mouthparts, where the mouthparts are modified into a thin or beak, as it called in some cases. They're modified to pierce into the host's skin or surface and draw out fluids. And what better example than mosquitoes at this time, right? I mean, I know it's getting cold in many places, but in many other places, it's still warm enough, and there's mosquitoes out there. So, piercing and sucking type. And here are a couple of other modifications too. They're very interesting. The lapping type, which is found in honeybees, and the siphoning type, which is found in butterflies and moths. And these are not problematic at all in terms of damage to humans, but the other two, chewing and biting, and the piercing and sucking, those account for the majority of damage to our interests. Okay, and insect mouth parts are important diagnostic tools because they determine the type of injury an insect causes. So biting and chewing mouth parts actually result in physical removal of tissue or other materials like food, whereas piercing and sucking mouth parts, they leave the surface intact. Probably sometimes there'll be a little bump or a little welt, but basically the surface is intact, and they remove fluids, which can be blood, or in the case of plants it can be plant sap, right? And these differences have important implications in managing these pests. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about in the coming part of the presentation. And here are some other pest behaviors that can be used in their management too. Excretion, right? All living things do that. It's poop or frass, as it's sometimes called. Sometimes poop is mixed with nesting material or food or different other things, but and sometimes it can be by itself. But poop always tells a great story. Nest building, right? All creatures have their favorite spot where they like to build their home. Some like the warmth, some like cooler places. And these may be different from resting spots where, where they just like to hang out, take a break for a little bit, maybe, take a break from foraging, for example. And then there are hiding places where they hide, like from sunlight when it's too hot during the day, or from predators, they hide. So and then there's mate finding, and that's a big one. So insects and many other pests display very different sets of behaviors when it comes to finding mates. And these are used big time in managing them. Think of pheromone traps, right? So there's a lot of behavior that can be effectively used. And unfortunately, we don't have time to cover all of that, although I would have loved to. So what I'm going to do is just give you a few examples of pest management strategies that effectively use pest behavior, and some other strategies, methods of pest management that probably don't. That's why they're ineffective. Okay, so we'll take a look at two different pests, very common in our environments, in community environments, built environments like homes, schools, and other places. And I won't go, like I said, I won't go over all of the management strategy, the entire management plan, but just parts of it that focus on utilizing pest behavior. And we can use that as an example. These two pests, we can use those as an example and think of many other pests that we will deal with in community environments. All right. So here goes. Here is the German cockroach. And I'm sure all of you have seen German cockroaches. They are these really small cockroaches, straw colored, with those two racing stripes on their back. And here is a family photo. You can see the male and the female, mom and dad. And the female is actually carrying an egg case. There's more babies along the way, right? And then the other individuals, so the winged ones are the male and the female, and the other individuals are nymphs, the young ones in different stages of development. And the fact that the female is carrying the egg sac, it's attached to her body, that is an important behavioral characteristic for the German cockroach, which gives it an immense advantage over other cockroaches. So some other cockroaches, they'll just drop their egg sacs when they're ready to go. Okay, so once the eggs are fertilized and ready, they'll just drop the egg sac randomly. They can be found by other predators or scavengers. Some dry out and die, but not the German cockroach. The female will carry the egg sac till the babies are ready to emerge. That gives them an immense advantage in terms of survival, right? So German cockroaches are very, very successful. They're indoor cockroaches, and they thrive in indoor environments. Okay, and here are some behaviors of German cockroaches that we can use in managing them. Okay, so we know some of this, right? They like warm and humid places. They love that. And what immediately comes to mind when we say warm and humid places in a building? Kitchens, right? Sometimes bathrooms. So kinds of places, and they love hiding out in cracks and crevices close to food and water sources. You get everything you need when you're a cockroach in the kitchen. So, and they have chewing mouth parts. Okay, cockroaches have chewing mouth parts. They're omnivorous. They eat anything, literally anything, including dead cockroaches. And cockroach feces and other feces, literally anything. And baits will work for cockroaches because of that habit, because they feed on anything. So some important behavioral points there, right? And to beat them, think like them. That's like a prime rule for managing pests. When you want to beat a pest, you think like a pest. So if you look at a home, and it's like a cross section of a home, and you're a person, where would you like to go in a home, right? All of the places probably which are light in color, which are well lit, right? So living room, bedroom, kitchen, etc. But for a cockroach, all of those places that are marked in black, that are highlighted with black, that's where they would like to hang out, right? Behavior again there. So that's where we need to focus our efforts, correct? And they leave signs, like we discussed in the beginning. All pests leave signs, some sign or the other. These are some signs that cockroaches leave. They leave piles of poop. Some, and they like to hang out in tight places, like, door jams or other cracks and crevices where, wires go back and forth and it's warm. They love those places. And when there's a lot of them, eventually they'll poop on all those surfaces, but eventually when there's a lot of poop, it starts to accumulate at the bottom of those places, right? And here's more poop in different places along the door jamb, and under a shelf, and more cockroaches here. And if you look at the clock, you'll see it'll disappear in a second here. See that? There's a poop behind the clock. So those are the places where they like to hang out. And what does it mean if you're seeing live cockroaches running around during the day? So cockroach behavior, typically German, especially for German cockroaches, they like to hide during the day, right? And that's where they'll stay the entire day till it gets quiet and dark. So if you're seeing live cockroaches running around during the day, any stage, not only adults, even nymphs, what does it mean? It means you have a pretty serious infestation. So that's an indication for us, right? That's something we can use. It means okay. So next I'll go over some of the aspects of German cockroach management. This is only part of an entire strategy. And if you need more information on that, please don't hesitate to reach out. I can send you the entire management strategy for German cockroaches. But here, I'll just talk about some of those parts of the management plan which focus on management. So I always like to say the spot treatments do work. They're very, very helpful. You don't have to nuke the entire building. If you have German cockroaches, you don't have to do that. Spot treatments will work. Why do they work? Thorough cleaning, sanitation, right? So you have a food spill in your kitchen, clean it up. That's spot treatment. And it removes the food for the cockroaches. They'll be out there foraging when it gets dark. You're removing it. And that's how you remove that food source. That's one step. Wherever possible, seal cracks and gaps, right? They like tight spaces. They like to hide, squeeze in between cracks and gaps and hide. So when you seal those, you're removing their harborage or places where they like to rest, right? Second step. Used compressed air, another spot treatment, to flush cockroaches out. So, we know they hide, right? So we know places where they hide. So if you can use a compressed air spray, you can use it from a tank, compressed air tank, or you can use a spray, compressed air spray. Excuse me. And before you do that, you set up a sticky trap perimeter around that area from where they'll start pouring out. And some of them will get stuck once you start, spraying the air. And if you're also ready with a vacuum cleaner, you can also vacuum up a number of them as they emerge. See, you got rid of ones. And when reasonable non-chemical methods, such as the ones we just talked about, when they fail, use baits. And I'll tell you why baits are so effective. Okay, that's what I'll cover next. So all of these steps in cockroach management, they utilize the behavior of the cockroach, and that's why they're so important in that entire management plan. Okay, baits. So now we're talking about chemical methods, and I'll tell you why baits work best. Because sprays, it's the most common thing that most people will reach for when they see a cockroach, right? And remember, we discussed, when you're seeing a few cockroaches out during the day, what does it mean? It means you have a pretty serious infestation, and they're out there. There's too much of them in those hiding places, so some of them are wandering outside. Kill just those few? No. And that's what sprays do, right? All these over-the-counter sprays. They're usually less effective because they only get the ones that you see. There's 1,000 more hidden, right? And they cause unnecessary exposure to us, right? You're applying the spray. When you see the cockroach, you may not hit the cockroach at first, right? You may have to spray continuously. You're leaving all of that residue there. And who gets exposed? We get exposed. The cockroaches may or may not contact it. If they contact it, yes, they will die. But what are the chances for that? They're extremely smart, they can avoid it, right? And so repeated sprays cause residue buildup, right? It's not good for us. And sprays, the second thing, sprays also interfere with baits, which are really effective. So when you have a bait, something that's attractive to the pest, right, and you put a layer of spray over it, it reduces the efficacy of the bait, right? So that's something to remember. And why do baits work so well? So keep talking about baits. One, they target all life stages of the pest. And here's a comparison between sprays and baits, right? Sprays are difficult in clutter, right? Many times our rooms are cluttered, creating lots of hiding places for cockroaches, but it's difficult for the spray to reach into those hiding places, right? Whereas baits will reach into all of those places, and I'll tell you how in a minute. Okay, and some sprays do have long lasting residue, like they stay there, the active ingredient continues to be active for a while. But baits do that too. Baits have long lasting residual. Many sprays are broad spectrum, especially the over the counter sprays that you can buy. They not only cockroaches, they're toxic to many other insects and other arthropods in the house, some of the which are beneficial maybe. Some of them are not pests, but they kill them anyway. Some sprays have extensive coverage, um, and sprays. Many sprays lead to development of resistance in insects because of that constant exposure. But coming back to baits, baits are usually not broad spectrum. Okay, they have specific target sites, and they don't have extensive coverage like sprays. Like when you squeeze the trigger on a spray bottle, you get a wide area that's covered. Baits don't work like that, and they are more targeted to a point source. And baits develop resistance too, and that's what I'll talk about. But and especially if there are more active ingredients, there's less development of resistance. Okay, and secondary kill is not such a big problem with baits. So when you look at the efficacy of these different types of materials that you can use for cockroach management, baits are the most effective, and followed by residual sprays. I'm not saying the sprays are not effective at all. They will kill some, sure they will. And the least effective are TRF, or total release foggers, right? I know some of you are familiar with that. Maybe you have used it too. But for cockroaches, total release foggers are least effective because they release the fog in a room, right? And what do cockroaches do when they sense that? They'll withdraw more into their hiding spots. They will not come out. So they never contact the pesticide. So that's why they're least effective. Okay. And again, baits, like I said, baits are pesticides. It's not that they're not pesticides. And they're just pesticides formulated in a different way. Okay. So they're not immune to resistance. And you'll see that when some baits are used continuously in certain locations, they do develop resistance. Pests don't take them. And resistance increases with selection pressure. And sometimes pests reject certain ingredients in the bait, like glucose, for example. Maybe they get they get diabetic. I don't know. So they reject glucose in the bait. So then you have to try something else, right? And in that case, there's no resistance to insecticide, but the pest is not taking the bait because of the other ingredient. However, certain ingredients do. There are reports of high levels of resistance developing to certain active ingredients like indoxacarb, fipronil, and many other of the common active ingredients that are found in baits. Okay, And remember the air spray that I just mentioned? The cockroaches, when they're disturbed from their hiding places, they'll flow out when there's a lot of them. They'll pile out, and that's the time when you can use a vacuum cleaner to suck up a lot of them. So when you're reducing that load, the population load, before you start baiting, that's also very effective. Okay, so it's very effective for the remaining ones. All right. And a little more about the baits. Okay, I just wanted to mention that. So even though baits are very, very effective, it's good to take some time to understand the situation. You can use sticky monitoring traps to monitor where those aggregations of cockroaches are located. That's very useful. And cockroaches have favorite spots to hang out, and we know this, right? They like warmth and humidity. They like food sources that they can go access easily. They like quiet dark places. So we can use all of that information to understand the infestation that we have. And fecal focal points, that's a great way to plan bait placement. Fecal focal points, remember the pile of poop, cockroach poop, that I showed you earlier? So in poop always tells a story, and I that you'll see that in the next pest that I'll talk about also. So plan bait placement based on the poop that you're seeing. Then increase the number of bait placements when sanitation is poor. So sanitation is like a prime role in cockroach management, right? You're removing food sources that that the cockroaches can access, leading to avoiding the bait. When they have other food, why would they take the bait, right? So when sanitation is poor, you'll probably have to put out more bait. And when they will pick up the bait, the cockroaches will definitely pick up the bait, and baits will get depleted, right? They're continuously being consumed, so you might have to put more bait, replace. And it's a good idea to rotate places where you're placing those baits. That's also a good idea. And there are certain baits that use IGRs, or insect growth regulators, and you can use that in your rotation to stimulate feeding, so that they'll more cockroaches will actually feed on that bait, especially pregnant females, which is a great thing to bring down the population. Okay, so just a few tips. I know it's a lot of tips, not a few, about using cockroach behavior in a baiting program. And also placement. I talked about placement. When many of the baits are in a gel format, they come in a tube where you can squeeze it out and apply it. And because we know the behavior, where the paths that cockroaches take, and the areas they frequent, that will help us to place them appropriately. For example, in a kitchen, there's all of these different places. You don't just randomly put bait on the floor, or just in a random corner, right? You need to place them strategically. So in inside kitchen drawers, maybe underneath cupboards, or under the sink. If you have a fume hood, maybe along the border of the inside the hood. All of those are great places. And there's also other tools that you can use to deploy baits. There are bait sticks that you can use for, and you can use these for hard to reach places, like behind equipment, heavy equipment that you cannot move frequently. You can put the bait on these bait sticks, and you can hang them, using a thread or other way, a hook, a metal hook or something, a metal wire hook that you can create, and you can place the bait there. And that's easy to check too. You can just remove that and see if the bait has been taken. So there are innovative methods of placement too. And here are some great examples of why baits are so effective, because of cockroach behavior. And here are some aspects of their behavior that are truly disgusting, but that's what they do, and that's what helps the bait to get dispersed among individuals in an aggregation. So cockroaches display, and not only cockroaches, many other insects display this behavior too. Trophallaxis, which means transfer of food or fluids from mouth to mouth. between individuals in an aggregation. Truffle access, great way to transfer bait, right? So if one cockroach gets the bait, it makes sure another one gets it too. There's coprophagy, which means feeding on feces. Remember, I told you cockroaches will eat anything. There's emetophagy, which means feeding on vomit. So cockroaches vomit too, and other cockroaches will feed on the vomit. There's necrophagy, which means feeding on dead cockroaches, dead bodies. Cockroaches will literally feed on that too, and they'll also move. Necrophoresis They'll move cockroach dead bodies and shed skins. So all of these behaviors help the bait to move within the aggregation of cockroaches. And it also means that the baits that are applied in a location just don't always stay there. So when you're done with the baiting cycle, it also means that you will have to clean up that area along with the dead cockroaches and their fallen body parts, etc., feces, etc., to reduce chemical exposure. So once you're done, when the population has come down, that's something that you have to do. Because like baits, or they are semi-solid and they don't run like, they're not liquid, so they don't run. They don't get dispersed in the air like dusts or sprays, but they still move. Okay, something to think about. But these are great behavioral aspects of cockroaches that help us to okay. And like I said, baits will only be effective. They're great tools, but they'll only be effective when there's no other food source around. Because baits are definitely designed to be attractive to cockroaches. But when there's other more attractive food, then that's what the cockroaches will go for, right? At least some of them. So it reduces the efficacy. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. Okay. So that's the part about cockroaches that I wanted to talk about, just aspects of their management which cash in on the pest behavior. And now I want to go over to another pest. It's also very, very exciting pest. Bed bugs. Bed bugs are panic pests, and it's not fun at all to have bed bugs. It's a really, really painful experience. Not physical pain, but I'm just saying the entire experience of having bed bugs is really, really agonizing. And I've had them, so I can tell you from first-hand experience. It's really a tough situation to handle. So I thought I definitely want to cover bed bugs here. And also, they're very different from they're similar, but yet very different from cockroaches. Let's see how. Okay. So here are some facts about bed bugs and something about their behavior. So a bed bug life cycle has these different stages. They have eggs, they have nymphs or the young ones, 5 stages, and then there are the adults. And bed bugs need to feed on blood at least once during each feeding stage in their life cycle. Other than the eggs, all of the other stages need blood. And once they're adults, they typically need to feed at least once a week. Twice a week is great, but at least once a week. However, they can survive for months without feeding. So they know they can shut down their metabolism and survive for months. And that depends on many other factors, not just availability of food. Temperature is and humidity are huge factors, and the stage of the insect. Like young ones, nymphs may not survive for months, but adults who are well fed may survive. Okay. So like I said, they need to feed on blood. They feed only on blood. They will not feed on anything else. Okay. So that means baits will not work. There's no bait that resembles blood, that functions like blood. So baits will not work for bed bugs. That's ruled out. Okay. Baits are great tools, but they won't work for bed bugs. Bed bugs have piercing and sucking mouth parts. They're not chewing type like cockroaches. See, that's different. They do not fly or jump. Cockroaches can fly. German cockroaches can fly. They're weak flyers, but they can fly. They can run pretty fast. Bed bugs cannot do that. They cannot fly or jump. The only thing they can do is walk. And they can walk pretty fast, especially if they're hungry and they sense a host. But not too fast, not like cockroaches. They're excellent hitchhikers, right? So they can transfer from person to person through clothing or other objects that we carry. They can transfer from, between furniture, articles. They're great hitchhikers. So those are some facts about bedbug behavior that we can use, okay, in management. And how can I, talk about bedbugs and not show you pictures? How can I do that? So here are some great bedbug pictures. So on the screen here, you can see to the top left is a nymph, a young one, probably a second instar one. It has some. It's actually feeding. It's in the process of feeding. You can see the fresh blood it's drawing into its body, and there's some digested blood towards the rear end. So that's how I know it's probably a second instar because it's already fed. Okay, and then on the bottom right is an adult bed bug, which is also in the process of feeding. You can see its proboscis is stuck into the skin of a person. And then on the top right, you can see a bunch of shed skin, bed bug skins, and there's eggs too over there. Okay, and here are some newborn bed bugs. How many of you have seen newborn bed bugs? Okay, so they're actually fascinating, beautiful, even beautiful to look at, I would say. This translucent, and at the moment they emerge, they'll find a host and they'll start feeding, and when they feed they look like that, like little red beads, right? Their bellies are full of blood. And on the bottom left is an empty egg casing from which the young ones have emerged. And then the other pictures are of shed skin. Here's more shed skin, and then another maybe second instar which is full of digested blood. So it'll soon poop that out and try to find a different meal. Okay, so just a few bed bug pictures there to get us thinking about bed bugs, right? And now let's look at the behavioral aspects, right? So in a home, where do bed bugs hide? Can you, all of these different places, all of these different choices, can you choose the top three? uh, you can put in the chat like ABC, or you can think think in your minds where bed bugs would hide. And yeah, pretty easy question, right? So definitely anything related to the bed or where people sleep, that's where they'll hide, that's where they like to be. So box springs, definitely, of a bed and mattresses, and headboards and bed frames. Those are the top three, but all of those other places, all of those other choices, yes, ACD, that's absolutely ACD, yes, and F2. Andrea, yeah. So all of those other places are possibilities. They're definitely possibilities where bed bugs can hide. And but however, what about J? Toilets. Did anyone think toilets? Well, here's proof that bed bugs can be in a toilet too. So this is especially true when there's people who spend a lot of time on the toilet. They could be, disabled in some way, elderly. They cannot, move quickly, so they spend more than usual time on the toilet. And bed bugs can hang out there as well because they have an assured food source that comes in regularly from time to time. And there's so many other spots in a house that bed bugs can hide. And all of these spots have one thing in common. They dark, tight spaces, and not disturbed frequently. And they have an assured food source that comes in. That's common. And here's a picture of a fully fed, the bed bug you saw earlier, remember? That's completed feeding. So it'll take it about 10 15 20 minutes maybe to get a full meal. and then it's good for several days actually. So that's what it's look like. It looks like when it's fully fed, right? And that's one happy bed bug. Okay, and so now let's put some of those behavioral aspects into a management plan. Okay, so the first step I would say is to prevent them. Prevent bed bugs. Prevention is better than cure. We know that. So the first step to preventing bed bugs is to avoid picking up any. And we know that bed bugs are great hitchhikers, right? So if you know, or if you suspect you're in a place, or you're going to be in a place with bed bugs, don't place any of your items on beds or upholstered furniture, right? And before you leave that location, conduct a visual, like a visual observation about on your person, of your clothing and belongings before you leave. You don't want to carry any bed bugs with you. And when you get home or a workplace, if some workplaces do have the facility, launder or dry, at least dry your clothes. Run them through a dryer and have a different set of clothes that you can wear. That greatly helps to reduce transfer of bed bugs. And if for items that cannot be placed in a dryer, a freezer works too, or a portable heat chamber. All of these are different options. And proper disposal, again, for the same reason that bed bugs are great hitchhikers. So improper disposal of mattresses and bedding and furniture are one of the prime sources of transmission of bed bugs. Okay, so we can discourage improper disposal, and we can encourage proper disposal, which means wrapping and marking items that are infested, and organizing solid waste pickup, putting up notices, what goes in the dumpster stays in the dumpster, things like that. So it's a very, very important part of bedbug management, not for a single home, but for a community, right? And when you're traveling, I know some of you may travel very frequently for work, right? Or other reasons, to visit family, maybe. So when you're traveling, it's a good idea to place your luggage in a bathtub. If there's a bathroom attached, place your luggage in the bathtub. One, because it's white. Usually bathtubs are white, right? And you can see inside, and then inspect the bed, and at least the bed and other places if possible, and see if there are bed bugs. So roll back the bedding, look all around the mattress. And if you pay attention to the signs and you know what you're looking for, you'll see it immediately if there are bed bugs. It's very easy to see. And if you suspect bed bugs, or there are signs, if it's hotel or some other place like that, try to sleep in a different place. Okay, try to move to a different place. Excuse me. And upon returning home, as far as possible, unpack into the washer and wash and then dry clothes. The drying is critical. Washing, not so much. um, Yes, Andrea asked a great question. Would compressed air work on bed bugs? Yes, absolutely. They would work. They will disperse them from their hiding spots. But remember, bed bug hiding spots are much more tighter and more they're thin. Bed bugs are really thin. So like any gap where a credit card could get in, you can find bed bugs. So they're less easy, they're more difficult to disperse than German cockroaches. But if you're planning to start, you found signs of an infestation and you want to start management actions there, compressed air, you can certainly use compressed air to dislodge bed bugs and vacuum them up. Great, that's a great idea, certainly. Okay, and right. And so upon returning home, unpack into the washer if possible, and then wash, certainly wash, or if you cannot wash, at least dry the clothes. Run them in a dryer for 40 minutes on high heat. That is guaranteed to kill bed bugs. And store luggage that you bring from outside the home, as much as possible, and certainly not under your bed or on your bed. Okay. And when you buy secondhand items, inspect them thoroughly. That's a great source for bed bugs. secondhand items, furniture, clothes, all of that. Whatever you can wash and dry, wash and dry. Others, leave them outside for a number of days if possible, especially in the summer. That's a great idea. And some items that cannot be put in a dryer or put outside, you can freeze them. So you can freeze them even in a regular freezer or fridge freezer for 4 days. That'll kill bed bugs. And yeah, there's so much more to talk about bed bug management, but yeah, I just want to cover a few more aspects about their behavior. Early detection. Okay, so we know some about bed bug behavior now, right? How they move about and where they like to hang out, and they poop a lot, all of that. But all of those are great signs to detect them early, right? Um, and here are lots of poop spots like along a mattress seam right there, along all over an electrical outlet, and I'll talk about electrical outlets more in a second. And blood is also definitely a sign. And the blood usually comes from when a bed bug is so well fed it can hardly move, and then a sleeping person crushes it accidentally, and then it pops and it leaves blood stains on your bedding. And then bites. Okay, so bites, I wanted to mention bites because bed bugs, bites alone are not a confirmation of a bed bug infestation, right? Lots of other insects and arthropods bite. But in the case of bed bugs, if you see bites like this in a line on exposed skin, that could indicate bed bugs. Because, when there's the sleeping person on a couch or a bed or whatever, so what the bed bugs do is they'll all line up along the person's skin, and they'll all plug in. Okay, so that's what causes those bites in lines. So they do indicate, but are not confirmation. I always say this, something that you can look for. And another example of using bedbug behavior: when conducting inspections, you may have to dismantle beds or other furniture, because these critters have an affinity for thin cracks and crevices, right? As cracks as small as the width of a credit card, they can squeeze into. So that's another aspect of behavior. And inspection is a very, very important part of bedbug management. And here, Andrea, here is another place where you can use a compressed air spray to dislodge them, to just agitate them so they move out, right? And the other thing I wanted to mention, this is the last thing I'll mention actually, is monitors. So monitors are great tools in a bedbug management program because they work around the clock, and they, even when we cannot, they're still working. And there are different types of monitors. Active monitors employ an attractant for bedbugs like heat, carbon dioxide, or host odors, or pheromones. Bedbugs have pheromones too, or a combination, to lure bedbugs out of their harborage into a pitfall or a sticky trap or some kind of a structure. So that's why monitors are so effective. And there's passive, and these exploit the bedbug's affinity for dark crevices. So but they don't attract, like physically attract bedbugs, but just exploit that particular behavior of bedbugs. And here are some different kinds of passive monitors or traps. And the top two, the climb up interceptors, are in those cases they use the sleeping human. So these are bed legs, and the interceptor traps are placed under the bed leg, right? They use the human as the bait. Like I said, there's no ready-made bait or commercial bait available for bed bugs. The person with the blood, that is the bait. And they intercept bed bugs on the way to the host, right? And the bottom two are probably most attractive to bed bugs that are already fed, and who have left the host and are looking for a place to rest. Okay, so there's different types of monitor traps, and I wish I had time to talk more about them, maybe at a later time. And another aspect of bedbug management, this is super important too. Bedbugs will crawl through walls, okay, especially in multi-unit residences, apartment buildings. They will crawl through walls. Okay, and through utility openings. Remember the electrical socket and the foop around it, and the electrical sockets are connected. They're connected to a wall, and then there's a gap in between, and then there's the next apartment. So they will crawl through, and that's why it's important when you're conducting an inspection for bed bugs. It's important to inspect all the neighboring units, because a reported infestation may be coming from a neighboring unit, may not be in the unit that you're in at that time. So another thing to think about. And for chemical control, um, it's sometimes inevitable for bedbug management, especially in an established infestation. However, again, see, insecticide applications alone will not control an infestation. All of these other things need to be combined with with the chemical insecticide, like removing and cleaning infested beds and bedding, removing harborage sites, vacuuming, so many other, all of those other things that we discussed. All of those need to work together to effectively get rid of bed bugs. And even with the use of chemical control, because these bed bugs are so good at hiding, they have this cryptic behavior. So there's this tool, for example. So if you would only treat where you would see bed bugs, so this particular stool had one on the exterior, which you can probably see right here around the center of the picture, and three or four were partially hidden, but there were 16 inside in different places of the stool. So because of the cryptic behavior, that's why they, all of the other things, that inspection and all of that is so important in bedbug management. So that's very quickly about these two different pests that we talked about. And I just wanted to mention the concept of integrated pest management here. IPM is a holistic approach and can be defined in many ways, but IPM is the best way to manage pests. And IPM combines different management approaches for greater effectiveness. It's not just one method all the time. And many of these methods that I've listed here, physical, mechanical, cultural, biological, all of these utilize pest behavior. And that's why IPM works. That's why it's so effective. Okay. So leave you with this question: how will you utilize pest behavior when you manage pests next, in your home, in your place of work, or any other situation? So that's my parting thought for you. And here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And thank you all once again, and stay safe and healthy out there. Best wishes. So with that, I'll just stop screen sharing. And I'll see if stop sharing. Okay. And if there are any questions, hi DC. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to see you too. And if there are any questions this time, I'll be happy to take them. If not, please feel free to reach out. Yeah. Anytime. We do a lot of work with tribal communities, and that's why I love this venue. I love this conference. I try to participate every year to share some information, and also meet everyone and say, hey, I'm here, I'm still here as a resource. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all the good comments. All right, Kurt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Should I stop the broadcast? I'm not seeing any more questions.
Yeah, sure. And then if people do have some questions, there is the lounge for
Right.
There's a pest management,
Yeah.
pest control lounge, so they
Correct.
can always drop a question in there.
All right. All right, then. Bye, everyone. I will leave. I'm stopping the broadcast, and I'll see you all later. All right. Bye.